So, weather permitting, technology permitting, we should be live now. Let's see. I'm monitoring it on my own YouTube over there, but nothing has come through yet. Are you monitoring it?
Weather permitting?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Technology permitting?
Good. So.
Nothing on Twitch.
Nothing on Twitch. It might take a little moment longer on Twitch. And now I can see myself on my YouTube stream. Excellent. Welcome. Hopefully we get a couple of people joining us as well. Currently my Streamlab is saying that there's nobody here. I don't think that's true. And of course I managed to completely lose the plot here with all my windows, but okay, I don't need it. So welcome. We are here today. I'm Frank, known on YouTube as Roldanash, and on Discords. And we've got as our special guest, we've got Philip here, aMediocreDad. Hello, Philip.
Hello.
And we've got Paul Watson, who is famous for his work on Alien especially, but yeah, and for all the support posts he does. But yeah, maybe we should just do short introductions to make sure that we get this on the show on the road and people know who you are and what you've done so far. Maybe just a quick round the table. I've got a few questions lined up. I'm sure this chat will eventually give us some. Hello, Mohammed. Good to see you. And yeah. May I invite you, Philip, to start us off?
Sure. So I'm Philip. I am currently located in Oslo. I'm a dad, as you probably get by my handle on Discord and yeah, in other places. I've also started going by aMediocreDad, as I'm technically now a developer. I'm starting a new position in December, thanks in part to Paul, who helped me getting it. And yeah, I have a lovely wife, lovely daughter, and I spend most of my free time doing a bunch of stuff. Like, yeah, I am doing a master's degree as well, apparently, but we'll see how that's going.
Just on the side in your spare time.
Yeah.
Hi, Nicholas. Yeah, so interesting. You said you are a developer now. So is that not something that is in your background? Have you not learned that before? Or?
I started in Python doing data science. And so I've had quite a lot of experience with data science in Python, R, and Stata. And so my programming background is technically from there. But I didn't really do anything in JavaScript, HTML, CSS before I started working on the modules for FreeLink. The modules were just manual input to begin with. They were actually something I did on my spare time. So yeah, I started learning by making Foundry stuff.
And that leads to a job now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
1 year later.
Turning your hobby into a job is a great thing, isn't it? Hopefully you'll keep enjoying it. I can definitely come back to that in a minute. But Paul, how about you? Shall we introduce you? And you're probably much more seasoned developer.
You mean old?
You said that.
I'm not actually. My background is in IT. I started in '77, but mostly it's been in the sort of networking and servers and security. So for the last 20 years, I suppose, I did security work. So audit and making sure there's no hackers and trying to stop hackers and things like that. So I did a bit of development work about 25 years ago, I suppose, and that was in C. Hated it. But no, so yeah, I'm semi-retired. I'm semi-retired because I can't find a job. But yeah, so my background is in IT, various things. I like playing with things, which is why I sort of got involved with Foundry and other systems.
Yeah, I mean, my background is not developer at all. I did some development. I did some at school, believe it or not, in the very late 80s, early 90s. So I can see what in it was Turbo Pascal.
Oh, okay.
And then
COBOL
Amiga
was
Basic and C64 Basic was actually my starting point, when you still had to enter line numbers for everything, and that was quite fun. Yeah, right. And when you get these gaming magazines and you get code printed off in the gaming magazine, you have to type it in to program your game, and then if any syntax error somewhere bugged it up, you were stuffed. Yeah, that's my stuff. But I actually also had an IT career before I became what I am now, but mainly in project management. So, yeah, crew systems, scheduling systems, anything planning systems for airlines and tour operators and so on. So it was really good fun. But definitely, I tried at some point to develop a rule set for Vaesen. It was on Fantasy Grounds, using what they call the More Core module. It's a guy out, Damien, I think he's called, out in Australia. I think he programs that as a toolkit for people to come together and create these rule sets. And I'm just about managed to do it, but that was the absolute limit of what I could do. And I did it once and I couldn't remember how to do it at all. So when I came into Foundry, I thought, I wonder how easy or difficult it is to develop rule sets in this. And you've been through it. I don't think I would ever dare to actually try and touch that. But how about you two? What systems did you start off with? How did you get into it? And what resources did you use to be able to learn this stuff?
I think Paul is best equipped to do this, because I've actually took over a system. I never developed one from ground up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I suppose it was early last year, just prior to the lockdown. I got Foundry, and I thought, because we've been using ArkenForge for face-to-face, which is a system I'm a support officer for. Great for making maps, but it also allows you to put stuff onto a flat screen on the table, and you can put your figures on it and things like that, which is really good. Of course, this hit, COVID hit, everybody grounded. So I started looking around at various things, tried some of the other products on the market, came to Foundry, found Foundry, and I thought, this is quite good. We were playing D&D at the time, so we were all good with that. And then because I wasn't at work, I thought, I might have a little go at something. So I picked up Alien, because Perfecto at the time was working on Forbidden Lands, the original Forbidden Lands system, among others. So yes, that was a real learning curve, because as Philip, to develop something in Foundry, you need to know JavaScript, HTML, CSS, a thing I'd never heard of, which is really good, called handlebars.
Okay, I've got some on my bike.
Yeah.
This is actually talk about the mustache.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
But I've got to be honest, Philip, handlebars is great, isn't it? I mean, it allows you to inject, in some ways, it allows you to put, usually in HTML, you can't do any conditional stuff at all.
No.
Handlebars allows you to put conditional stuff into HTML. Yeah. So you can test things and things like that, which is quite useful. And then, of course, you've got the Foundry APIs, which is a bit of a black art. So that was a pretty steep learning curve. So it took me about 2 months to get the first version of Alien in a condition that people could run and roll things.
Why did you choose Alien?
Seemed like a good idea at the time. As I say, Perfecto was working on Forbidden Lands. Alien seemed to me like a reasonably simple system to start with. I never set out to write, and I've said it in a number of places, I didn't set out to write a video game. So if you want to do combat, GM, you've got a job to do. You do your combat. I'm not going to automate that. I don't have any plans to do it. But really what I wanted to do was be able to automate having character sheets on there, dice rolling and things like that, just to facilitate a game as opposed to, completely.
Opposed to running it, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not decrying systems that do that. I think they're really useful.
I mean, Warhammer, it's definitely a must. I mean, I wouldn't want to run that around a table, to be honest.
Why not?
I've tried. It was wow. It's a lot of work to keep a tab on all the modifiers in that system. Amongst other things, you have advantage, fate, fortune. It's just so much. And what Mooman has done with that system is absolutely fantastic. It's basically the measure by which every system on Foundry is,
So I should have a look at that. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, totally.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And today I had to look at a system, a German system called the Dark Eye.
Oh yeah,
Das Schwarze Auge.
Yeah.
And they actually have done I think, pretty good job of developing this as well. So they've got some features like a sort of rule book browser and an index where you can search items and you can do everything basically from one screen. And that's really cool. I really like the way they've done that. Cool. The sort of navigation of having a navigation bar on the left and the display pane on the right, and then you can flick through the rules very quickly and set bookmarks, and you can pin stuff to your own pin board. And it's just, it always looks so easy, but I'm sure it is not. So what were the sort of challenges you came across? Maybe going into the modules now more than the systems, but what sort of challenges did you encounter? Can you give us some examples from Forbidden Lands, of Alien, of maybe Simbaroom?
I think the biggest hurdle, one thing is what you call a content management system, or a CMS for short. Just organizing everything, that's one thing. But the real hurdle was transferring it from your development environment to another user's system. Because initially, in version 0.7.9, we didn't have any way of keeping IDs between import and export. And so we had to manually create a script that did all that for us. And I think only Mooman at the time had a script that did some importing and sort of juggled IDs about so that a user would, click on a map pin and it would pop out a journal. That is not something you should take for given, because even that is a dark art, was a dark art in 0.7.9. In 0.8, it became a bit easier, but then with 0.8 came so many changes that a lot of developers were slightly put off by the amount of changes that needed to be done to keep anything maintained. Yeah.
Okay. So does that mean every time there's a major version out there, I guess you have to do a lot of rework?
I think they learned their lesson from 0.8.
Right.
Hope so.
Yeah.
Because 0.9 is coming before Christmas, I think you said, right?
Yeah. And yeah, go ahead.
So 0.8 was a bit of a nightmare because they changed a lot of the underlying structure of things, which didn't help. And also they brought in new features which were very good, but they changed things that were already there. So, basic things like dice rolling suddenly stopped working. Why? Because, guess what? You've got to say whether it's a synchronous or an asynchronous roll. So we all had to go and redo all of our dice rolling mechanics to make those work, as an example. And I found, actually in the 0.9, I found an instance the other day, which I told Philip about. So Philip, I use scripts that Philip wrote for exporting the data and then importing the data. I'm quite happy to nick his work at any time because he does such a good job. But so
is there a fair bit of comparing notes with each other and of saying, how do you do this? How could I do that? Amongst yourselves, amongst Foundry in general, and maybe amongst the wider Free League Foundry development team, because there's another 2 or 3 boys, right? Or chaps.
Yeah, we're a group of 16 people on Discord right now. We're
really?
Like a small community, yeah.
So you've got Twilight. Who made Twilight?
Yeah.
Twilight. That was.
Who does it?
Oh, crumbs.
No, that's Stefan.
Stefan, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you've got Tales on the Loop, which is David.
Yep.
Yes.
You've got Vason, which is David.
Yep.
Mutant, Year Zero.
Well, so Yeah, no, I was just going to say that. So Tales from the Loop was originally David, but Vaesen was originally Perfectra.
Oh yes, like
Yeah.
Simba Room was originally
So David
Perfectra.
took over when he did the modules. Happy Steve is a mutant.
Happy Steve is a mutant. Revelation.
And David did Things from the Flood as well.
Yeah, Things from the Flood, Tales from the Loop. Yeah.
Okay.
And also we have so many others. We have Matt for Merkborg. And,
oh yes, I keep forgetting about it, even though I have it here.
Winks doing Coriolis, of course.
Winks,
we also
yes.
have, we were talking earlier before the show about Ian. He's also helped out with Merkborg. He's doing the Metifius stuff, but he's in our Discord. I also have a lot of help for Forbidden Lands, and for Zimbaram you have Paul and
Peter
and Bithar and Carly for Symbaroum. Well, in fairness, Bithar and Carly do all of the development for Symbaroum. I just do push the button and release it. They've done a fantastic job in bringing that system on.
It was interesting because I had a play with Symbaroum a couple of months ago, and to look at the automation, the combat system. What you were just saying earlier, you said you didn't want this automated. You wanted basically to say, here's a character sheet, everything else needs to work in the GM's and the player's brains. And they seem to certainly offer the chance, let's put it that way, to automate more. Yeah? So,
yeah, that's Carly's baby. So Bithar plays by I'm the GM, you do the role, and I'll tell you what the result is. So, really, the way it's intended to be run out of the book. Carly wants to automate it, and I think, that's his side of it. That's his baby. He looks after all of that enhanced combat mechanic within the system.
So the two of them. Lots of work.
It is. I mean, the two of them work together really well, in saying, look, we need to do this. And okay, if I do this, it will work in my world, non-EC. Will it work in EC? So they have extremely long conversations on Discord sometimes.
Good chums.
And they only ever call me in when they want a bit of CSS written, usually.
All right. Philip, how about you? What's your view on that, on automation and Forbidden Lands, for example? If, for example, I roll a Bane on my gear dice, is that something that is going to be then breaking my weapon automatically, or do you still have to do that manually?
Well, yeah, so I'll cover that. I just wanted to add there's two more, so we don't forget them. There's Irv doing Wandering First Edition.
Oh, yes.
And, Stefan did the Wandering Second Edition, but I think Herb was working on it at the same time. And right now we have Herb's version.
Yeah, I had a look at that as well. It looks really nice. I'm really tempted to try and run a game of it. Yeah.
And to be honest, it was Philip that set all that up and basically said, hey, why don't we all just, we're all developing for the same house. Let's all get together and
good thinking,
exchange ideas and say nasty things about Foundry.
So that was when the modules when I was doing that my own prep work for my own campaign. Essentially, I thought, hey, why don't I ask Free League if I can put this out? And they said, well, we're actually quite interested in Foundry because Martin is he's an avid Foundry player. He's playing mostly in Warhammer. And so I got in touch with them and I said, hey, I also have a ton of other developers who's probably interested in doing modules, whom I've talked to. We were all in the Foundry Discord, and I asked around for some emails and I sent them to Free League and hoped they would contact different. And well, here we are today. So
indeed. And a couple of months ago, I think it was Thomas who was saying in the chat, asked about Foundry. He said, oh yeah, our aim is that by the end of the year, most of our systems, if not all of them, will be available on Foundry. And I just thought, right, I believe it when I see it. And actually, so many of them have come through since then. It's like living in the golden age of Foundry development here. It's really good.
Yeah. So back to automation. The thing is, I initially didn't want automation either. There was a Swedish guy called Peter Nyström who helped me out.
I know, I'm on Discord.
Yeah. He was helping me a lot with learning how to develop in general, and him and a French guy called Giant Teapot. And we were working on the Forbidden Lands system, and we kind of agreed that we shouldn't do too much automation because it kind of takes away from the whole old school feel. However, when Stefan came around and developed this port of his Sibelius dice roller for Discord, he ported it over to Foundry.
Oh, that's where I know the name from. Yeah, Sibelius.
Yeah. He did a great ton of work on this universal dice roller for all the Free League systems. And I implemented that one in Forbidden Lands eventually. And that's when it sort of opened up automation quite a lot. And so there's plenty of opportunities to automate everything. However, I still need to work out, for example, the modifier system, which was developed without the intention of automation. So it was just intended as a guideline kind of thing. That's a lot of work. We'll see.
I think all of this is a lot of work.
One of the things I found with Alien was, you've got a lot of skills, talents in Alien, but if you look at them deep down, they're conditional. So it's if you are outside the ship using your engineering skill, you can use this talent, and to automate something like that is nigh on impossible.
So the way I do it is basically just optional tick boxes now. But the modifier system still needs reworking for it to work like I want it to do. Internally, it wouldn't change much to the user, but I think it would make it more ergonomic for a user, perhaps. But the visuals wouldn't change that much. But behind the scenes, I could make it more easy to add modifiers to talents and stuff. And it's a lot of work, and especially when it's conditional like that. And Free League has a tendency to create, like I said, more exceptions to the rule than actual rules. I don't know. It sometimes it feels like I just have to do manual input or like find some really convoluted like if else, if this then that, if that then this, then
Well, I mean, Symbaroom's a nightmare.
I was just thinking that. I was just thinking that, Paul.
And Bithar and Carly have actually written and they're improving it now. Basically, behind a trait, for instance, there is a macro. So when you click the button, it goes away and fires off another bit of code. And they're working on that now, and actually they're trying to build it so that module developers could utilize it in the future. So you can create your own powers, whatever, and visually it's a very simple box. When you push the button next to it, behind it, it fires off some code that you've written that will go away and change various things. So a system within a system, obviously, almost.
But I thought they had a whole state machine behind the whole automation system. Almost
more or less. They have. It's quite manual at the moment, and that's what they're looking at doing, is trying to take it to the next level, which is actually now all you do is you create this, you point that to that, and it will work. And they, as I say, they're doing they lose me.
You make it sound so easy.
When they start talking.
I'm in sort of two minds with things like this automation, because I had bought from Pixel Diet, I think it is, on Fantasy Ground, their Symbaroom system. and I was trying to automate a lot. And I was running the Chronicle of the Copper Crown on Fantasy Grounds at the time, having imported all the data manually, into Fantasy Grounds, as I do. And then we had some very, very odd behaviors in the fights. And I just thought, why are they hitting all the time? There's something right here. And then it was basically the defense modifier wasn't working properly. But everything was hidden. You couldn't see what was actually going on. It was a black box and it started going wrong. And at that point, I just said, you know what, we're just going to use the character sheets. Forget the automation, like Paul was saying. I'm going to do all the maths in my head, or you can do it in your head. We're not trusting the system. And that was a real letdown for me. And then I came across to the Simba Room system at the time without the automation on Fantasy Grounds, on Foundry, and I was quite happy with it, I have to say. Now coming back, as long as it works, I'm fine with it. Yeah. But Simba Room, I think one of the big problems is that they've got contradictory rules, and you could use the advanced player rules, you could use this from this adventure collection, there's some extra rules in it, or you can use the base rules, or you can use homebrew. And trying to get that configurable for user, that's going to be a challenge for them, isn't it?
A lot of the homebrew stuff is conditional now. So in the setting screen, you can switch certain things on and off. Homebrew rules, we're never going to support. They'll probably contradict me on that one at some point.
Never say never. Coming back on the content side a bit more, as I said, I entered all the Coriolis stuff and all the Simba Room stuff in Fantasy Grounds first. Then I put it all into Foundry. Certainly Coriolis first, and then something went wrong with the Coriolis version upgrade, so all my stuff was lost. So I did it all again. And now it's available officially, which I'm very happy with. But there's so much time that you do with copy and pasting. And I'm just using very, very basic copy and paste. I've got the PDF open on one side. I use Notepad++. I don't know whether you know that little piece of software. I drag it across my block of text, mark it, Control-J joins it all up, and then I put that into Foundry, into the editor, and tag it up saying this is heading 1, this is heading 2. And I have to say I find the editor, that is in Foundry, I find it incredibly limiting. There's no keyboard shortcuts, there's nothing there. You always have to select it and then go up to the drop down and select it from there again. I'm sure you found a better way. Have you got some tips for people like me to say, I'm not wanting your secrets, don't worry, your industry knowledge, but have you got any tips where you say this might be an easier way to manage content and getting it into Foundry if it's something like maybe the One Ring, where there's, as I understand it at least, not going to be an official content module for it?
No, they won't. Well, I gave you my trade secrets on Sunday.
Yeah, but you did say you didn't want to share them all publicly.
No. To be honest, for me, one of the letdowns in Foundry at the moment, or the weakest points in Foundry at the moment, is the journal and the journal editor, and what you can do in the journals. I do all of my preparatory work in VS Code. Because in VS Code, you can build the HTML as you want it, you can play with it, and then you just cut and paste that into the editor. You use the
code editor.
Little chevrons, just paste it into there. It's much, much faster. I mean, my workflow is basically to copy it out of the source material, put it into VS Code as a basic format, plug it into the journal, look at it, tweak it, add a few boxes, add a few graphics and things like that, and then move on to the next one. But trying to do any meaningful styling in the journal is pointless, to be honest.
Yeah.
VS Code is free. It works very well, and you can just knock up a bit of basic HTML in there and plug it in.
I mean, just Philip made some beautiful. You made some beautiful style sheets. So even when I do my basic copy and paste and stick it into Forbidden Lands, it still comes out looking good.
So I tried to port some of that over to the system. Some of it less successfully than others, because when I initially did the modules, I actually put a lot of styling into what's called HTML classes, and I should have just put them on something called tags, which would have made it a lot more transferable for or usable by other people. Now that said, I totally agree with Paul here. Learn some basic HTML like learn what a p tag is, learn what a span tag is, if you need it, and maybe tables. That's probably getting a bit too advanced, but just header tags, p tags, and you're good to go. Just code, like, put it into an HTML file, save that HTML file on disk so you can easily edit it, and then you can. That's basically what we're doing. We have a bunch of HTML files, and if something's wrong, I go into the HTML file, or I pull it out of Foundry, the HTML version, and I just do a small edit in HTML and put it back in through the source code editor in the tiny MCE editor. So it's much more easy, much more reliable, because any work you do in Foundry's editor can be lost if your page reloads. So just don't.
Yes, I noticed that.
Yeah.
But basically, you're still doing copy and paste. You're just doing it in a cleverer way than I do.
No, I didn't.
No?
I told Paul this. Oh, me and Paul discussed this a lot when we started out, and he said, like, fuck, screw it, I'm just going to do copy paste. I was like, but you know what, there's got to be a way to automate this. And I'm like, if I can try for 3 hours failing to automate something, I'll rather do that. And so I essentially wrote a ton of what's called regular expressions, which is search strings. So I can search for, I can use sort of like wildcard selectors and sort of like negative lookaheads and groups and stuff.
Negative lookaheads, that sounds good.
Yeah. So it's quite elaborate. And I wrote a whole lot of it so that I could capture HTML strings and stuff. I basically outputted, I took all the PDFs, or the InDesign files, sorry, threw them through a batch editor in Adobe InDesign that spits out HTML. That HTML is so poorly formatted that it looks like a mess. And so I went manually through all that HTML, tried to find places where I could pull out sections of the text. And this is why one entry I have seems to have missing so many sections, because apparently that script failed badly because of the selectors not being correct. This is that's a pitfall of automating shit. So I wrote a ton of regex, ran that, and it ended up with some HTML that I could use. Well, and that is essentially what it is.
And this is all stuff you taught yourself?
Yeah,
you said, yeah, of course.
I mean,
that's why you're starting a new job soon.
And it's the only thing it's the only thing I haven't stolen from Philip. I still do it the old way.
Copy and paste, yeah.
Well, we had Winks doing Coriolis. Like I think Paul mentioned it. He had his own system. He made his own CMS system. He's copy pasting, but he's copy pasting into Markdown, which is an easier way to create HTML essentially. And he just runs a script, and that Markdown is plopped into a DB. So a Foundry DB. So he just gets each journal entry manually made.
He's some really lovely stuff as well. Like the graphics design, I really like on that.
Yeah. So Winks is actually, I think he's a full-time front-end developer. So he's got a lot of experience with doing just this kind of stuff.
Indeed. Well, it's very interesting to hear that, and that I'm hearing that you're able to do this workflow.
It totally shows.
Yeah.
That those journal entries are so beautiful. Holy shit. Yeah.
But I don't think that either of your systems have to hide either. Yeah, just to be clear on that.
I tried.
Forbidden Lands, for example, I use that probably way more. I think I've never run Alien online, but Forbidden Lands I had for a while 2 weekly sessions. Now it's 1 fortnightly session I've got. Next session is on Sunday in German, so I've got the English content and the German content next to each other, sort of thing. The German content is translated by myself.
We should pitch it to the local publisher. Maybe they're interested. Seeing
yeah, maybe, but I still have a day job, so I'm not sure I would actually be able to do what you did anyway, and get the German content out of there. I don't think I would have that. The market is probably a bit smaller, I'm guessing, for the German-speaking, Die Verbotenen Lande. But it's really good fun to play that game. And I think that game especially relies on you being able to have lots of reference information. Yeah, you make something up on the spot, so you need to be able to say, okay, what was that again? Yeah, what about these people? Can I have this die roll, the session generators that are integrated, or the random generators? They're really useful for that. The Alien relies more on the content you provide.
Well, our group played Forbidden Lands for a month. Luckily, Philip had released the modules. We played it for a month, and 4 months. 4 weeks of that, playing once a week, was just journey. All they were doing was journeying from one side of the map to the other, and the journey. One of the things I like about Forbidden Lands is the journey rules. They're very rich. It's fun.
It is fun.
So it took us ages because they actually decided they were going to have their hold over one side of the map, and they wanted to go to the mountains over the other side of the map. So they did that.
Kind of doing that, yeah. One thing I actually did notice on Forbidden Lands is in the random encounters on traveling. Yeah. I always get the same 3.
That's not my fault.
There's always the same 3 encounters I'm getting, other than no encounters. The harpies will come up a lot. It's I think it's called Duet in the Woods, where they're singing and shouting and fighting at each other. And the third one is, I think, the Orc Fugitive. It's those 3 that keep coming up.
So a lot of people also get the Great Entertainer. What's his name? No, the Great, the guy who bellows at people.
Oh, the Great Insulter or something like that.
Great Insulter, yeah.
I haven't had that one yet.
We got the Death Knight twice.
Oh, Death Knights, yeah, you can reuse them.
So there's a lot of people claiming. There's a lot of people claiming that Foundry isn't random enough. I'll tell you what, this is exactly what random is.
Yeah, I suppose so. Do you get to play much, Philip? Do you play these systems?
No. Well, I wish I could play more than 3 sessions of Forbidden Lands. I haven't played. I think I played 3 sessions total in my system.
Oh well. And how about Paul? How many of you run off or played of Alien? Yeah, this is a question.
You said you weren't going to ask me that question. 1, but not using my own system. We played it around the table.
All right, fair enough. Hi, John.
Thomas Bolton actually ran in February just before we did the release of the 2 Alien modules. Thomas ran Chariot of the Gods.
Thomas is in the chat. Maybe he can tell us how it went.
Well, we enjoyed it.
Yeah, good. That's the main thing.
It was fun, but yes, that was. I've run Forbidden Lands. Other people's systems.
I've actually run Alien, but not using the modules. Yeah, I after I started developing the modules, I haven't had spare time. But I ran Alien. I think I've run it twice. It was great, but I didn't run I ran something called Epsilon 13. It's a module for Mothership. It's a great module. Yeah, and
I've got lots of
Alien
Mothership
so well. Yeah.
I only ran Alien around the table. Yeah. So what does Thomas say in the chat? It says, I ran it for you. Well, we know that, Thomas. It was brutal, as it should be. Good. Glad to hear.
He didn't pull any punches. And in a couple of weeks, we are going to use Winx's system to run. I'm running. I'm starting Mercy of the Icons, so we'll be playing Coriolis.
Yeah, I've run the first book entirely through Foundry, and it is good, but there is some stuff I still don't like about the Coriolis rules. I know it's heresy, but some of the fighting, I just don't like it very much. So I hope that combat overhaul that is currently going on is going to be good, and then maybe somebody's going to put the journal entries for that into Coriolis. It is interesting also to hear the conversations around that. It's probably going away a little bit now, but things like the grape weapons and the thermal weapons apparently have in Swedish had different rules than they had in English. So there's stuff that hasn't been translated from the Swedish translation into the English properly. But yeah, that's another story for another time. Now, once you have the modules out there, I guess I can see on the Discord you both offering a lot of support for that, for the systems, and a lot of questions coming in. How much time does it take out of interest of your day? Or how many hours a week do you think you might actually have to spend on supporting stuff, fixing stuff, or just answering questions? Especially Paul, the right-click question, how often do we have that?
Yeah. With two modules out, it's way more. It's double the work.
Really?
Oh, well, two systems, I mean.
Yeah, oh yeah, right.
Well, we've got once I've finished the Adventure Compendium, which is not a secret anymore for Symbaroum, because
Good.
Matthias said I was doing it on the stream the other week. So that will be 6 modules I'll have out in the wild. For me, I think Philip's the same. I think Philip will agree. Usually it's the first 3-4 weeks where people start finding the things you got wrong, or the things you left out, or the misspellings. So that's usually, for me, that's the panic zone. Is right, the module's out there, people have started using it, and immediately you get somebody go, oh yeah, you've left this out, or for me, because I'm cutting and pasting everything, usually it's this artifact or power has got the same text as this power, and it's like, oh damn, easy to fix, but quite annoying and frustrating. You haven't got it right in the first place. So usually for the modules, I think it's probably the first 3 weeks.
And for the systems,
that's ongoing.
Yeah,
that is ongoing.
The other day I put out 4 patches to the system because each patch brought a new bug. I wish. Okay, so here's the thing. I wish Foundry
what did you do, Philip? Go on.
No. I wish Foundry was done in TypeScript, because this would have been avoided completely if I could have done the modules in TypeScript without having to rely on a community edition or community library, which is incomplete. And essentially what TypeScript does, it yells at you if you input the wrong values in places. And that is essentially what happened. I didn't account for all when I did a check to see if a list of items was put into or pulled into a modifier, a factory that sort of like goes through each modifier in the list and checks if an item has sort of like a corresponding modifier to that list. I checked to see if the list was that it was not a list, but I did not check to see if it was another value. There's a whole JavaScript is messed up essentially, and has a lot of like what's called a null value is actually an object, and I was checking if the list was an object, and I didn't account for it being a null value, which is also an object. And so I checked for that, and it just ballooned, and essentially I managed to squash all of the bugs I created subsequently after that.
It must be really difficult to test, essentially, because I used to, as I said, I used to be in software project management or software development, and one of the things I had to implement early on was a more sedate pace of releases rather than we just write it and then we release it and we see what happens. You can't really do that when you have commercial systems running on it. But you don't really have a team of testers other than your users, right?
Yourself.
No, I mean,
Yourself.
We can thrash it as much ourselves, but when I was in systems programming about 30 years ago, somebody said to me, never underestimate the stupidity of a user. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, they will always do something you don't expect them to do. And, it's like, so there's no type definitions in JavaScript. So you declare a variable, and you can put a letter in there, or a number, or a floating point number, and further down the line in the script, if you forget what you've done, you can stick a letter in there, and JavaScript will say, yeah, fair enough. But then your code comes along, tries to read that variable, and suddenly it's got a letter sitting in there. So, and also, excuse me, and we're looking at how we can do this, how we can get around this, is when you create the forms for or the character sheets, it's very difficult to put validation code behind whatever you're putting in. So it is something we're looking at trying to do, an efficient way of doing. But so if you get a user that you've got let's say a currency field that's expecting you to put a number in, if you put letters in, it'll take it.
It's hard to build the validation, as you say. You said earlier you can't account for the stupidity of the user. Now, I don't want to pick that up too much, but is there something you guys can tell the users, show the users, to avoid a lot of support questions? And I know that you have both created some documentation for your systems, but how do you get the users to read it? How do you make sure that it's as easy as possible for them?
You pray.
You pray.
That they read it.
Yeah. Can you say sign here at the bottom that you've read it? Otherwise, you can't proceed to the system.
So the most popular question, alien support question, is how do I delete a weapon XXX? And about every Foundry developer knows the answer to that, so I don't have to do it anymore. And it's basically you right click on the little box in the corner. Now, in the documentation I've done, and I spend quite a lot of time on that, I've actually got that in there twice.
I remember reading it.
And I've even put a tooltip on it now. So if you hover the mouse over it, it will say left click to open to edit, right click to open the context menu. People still ask the question. So you can't make people read things. You've got to try and make things as intuitive as possible. And tooltips don't seem to do the trick.
People don't hover long enough.
You need patience, don't you, for tooltips?
Yeah.
How about you, Philip? Have you come? What's your most common question for Forbidden Lands, for instance?
Actually, I don't have a lot of use questions or use issues, user issues. It's Perfecto did a good job on sort of making a lot of stuff explicit, and I've tried to do that. Or keep that tradition going as best as I can. I don't think I hide a lot behind context menus or anything. However, for changes and stuff, I tend to try to sort of like have a pop-up message, and if you don't scroll to the bottom of that message and click accept, it will keep popping up, for example. So
I want to nick that code off you, by the way.
Oh well, no, that's really easy. It just checks if you click accept, it just registers a setting.
I've got a few modules that do that now. Let's say do not display this in the future. Okay, turn indicator was one of them, or turn marker, I think. It was also interesting when I was playing with this German system today. They didn't have an automated import script. So when you first loaded the module, you had the module sitting there, and the module was sitting there indeed. I'm just seeing the there it is. Yeah, come to that in a second, John. You have to basically manually select what you want to import and import it, but they have this general browser which actually hits the compendium for everything, so you don't actually need to import a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, another good way, because that keeps it clean.
That's what Warhammer does as well. Mooman has essentially built his own item browser in Foundry. It's a beast of a part of the system. And I was looking into that, but I couldn't create that in time for the modules. So I essentially said, screw that, I'm just going to import everything.
And there's a bit of, if you look out there are some modules that you buy that don't import anything. They just leave it all in the compendiums because in the wider Foundry community, there is some discussion over whether or not it's actually efficient to import everything or just leave it in the compendiums.
Yeah.
The jury's out. I mean, nobody can come up with any evidence really.
Well,
for
in 0.7.9, it was quite evident that importing into a world was really inefficient because Foundry didn't load a compendium mod pack before you actually opened it. That's why it was slight lag when you clicked the pack before it opened. However, in 0.8, Foundry soft loads each compendium pack, so there's still a small gain to not importing everything, but it's a lot less of a difference than it used to be. Most certainly. Yeah.
As long as I can find the stuff, I don't mind where it's stored. Yeah, as a user, but I need to be able to get to it. Yeah, and that's the key.
But I also think like if you could put the compendium packs under the actual item menus and stuff, that would be absolutely fabulous.
Essentially like a shortcut.
When you can't, I think it's a shame not using those. Those tabs for anything, and it just looks empty, and it's kind of like, did my module populate anything? Is it working? You know, there's this sort of like user expectation of like where's the stuff I paid for, and importing it sort of certainly makes it more
obvious, rewarding. And that pop up when you first activate and say, "That's where it went, my money." John just complimenting you on the Forbidden Lands import scripts.
Yeah, and John, that's when 0.8 rolled out. I was allowed to, or kind of, I could do that. But you'll notice in the latest update, you have duplicates, and that's essentially because I changed, or maybe not. Yeah, well, I think you do because I had to delete one and recreate it, and that makes a new ID, which then, when compared to all your imported stuff, will not find it, and as such, not update it, and instead just create a new one.
Is it just one, or is it a couple of hundred?
I think it was 2 or 3 monsters that are duplicated now. I'm not sure.
Because I already operate with duplication of my own reference information, my own tables, and so on, my own initiative, and then I've got the imported stuff. So, yeah, I'm sort of used to it by now. Is there something, looking ahead on Foundry now, where you say, if Foundry only did this would be a much easier job for us all? What would it be?
Stable endpoints. Basically, let us hook into something we know won't change.
For instance? Like what?
So Foundry is extremely extensible. Like you could do anything with it. You could strip out all of Foundry and create your own thing if you wanted to. It's a lot of work, but you could. I'm actually experimenting with using a completely different framework from what's called handlebars in jQuery. And it's possible. It's a lot of work again, but it's possible. Now, what Foundry doesn't do so well is tell you, here, these are the endpoints you should use. These are the endpoints that we don't want you to use. Please stick to these ones, and we promise you these won't change.
All right.
Yeah.
A stable foundation. That's what you really want.
Essentially, with most APIs, you don't want it to change because it will break something. And of course, in a software's iteration process, that will inevitably happen, but it shouldn't happen as often as it did. So it looks like Foundry is about to stabilize, but we now have the issue of it there being just way too many places you can hook into Foundry to do one thing. There should really just be one place you hook into Foundry.
So they should be tidying it up before they stabilize it.
Yeah, most certainly. But that's gonna ruin so many modules.
Oh dear.
No idea.
It's all about getters and setters, and there aren't many getters and setters. So what we tend to do is say, well, actually, if we run this, we can get that information, and it's in a format that we want to use. Somebody else can get that same information in a completely different way. Which one's right? So that's tricky. for me, if they did one big change that would make me happy, it would be putting folders in compendiums.
Yeah, well,
because then we wouldn't have to do any imports. We could just, if you imagine it organized in the compendiums in a folder structure with all of your items in a structure, you could just go straight to the compendium, do it from there.
Sounds good. Neither of you said have a better editor, I noticed.
well, we've already been through that. So.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Actually, I'm working on, or I'm not working on. I've been toying with an idea of creating a better editor, but it's. I mean, I'm not far along with that, but I did some initial work with the whole journal anchor links, which is used in
JAL.
Tales from the Flood. Yeah.
JAL.
Yeah.
And Symbaroum, and Frank's got a complaint about JAL.
Not a complaint as such, but I was loading something. I can't even remember what it was, whether it was Symbaroum or something else, and it said this has a dependency on JAL.
Oh yeah.
And do you want to install it? And I thought, JAL? What is JAL? Yeah, and I looked in the module list and I thought, there is no JAL here. Because for me, coming out of the industry I used to work in, JAL is Japanese Airlines. But
yeah.
okay. And
that's
then
why I called it that.
We finally, really? Okay.
I used to live in Japan, so
right. So you could have called it ANA as well, but anyway. I then went through the list and said, well, that's really strange. I can't find a module called JAL, but okay, let it install it, and it worked. And then Paul said, oh, that's journal anchor links. But that's just this short sideline.
Unfortunately, I don't know of a way. I think it was Symbaroum you might have been installing when you got that. I can't remember. I can't find a way to change the error message to say journal anchor links.
Yeah.
I think
if you know
also be like you should also be able to put it in the manifest that it has a dependency on.
I think it is in this because it did install it.
It is, but if you haven't got it, and it will install it. If you haven't got it, but for some reason, sometimes it hiccups. And like if you one way to try it, you switch off journal anchor links, and it will come up with the error message that says you need JAL enabled rather than journal anchor links.
That's a small thing.
If you know of a way around that, can you let me know? And I'll.
It's a small thing, yeah. Not a complaint at all. The last question. Sorry.
Yeah. No, yeah, we can take that privately.
Yeah. You do that. You too.
Right, the group.
Last question from me is on my list anyway. Is of course, Foundry is not the only system out there, and there's other systems, other VTTs who have implemented the same rule sets. Do you ever take a sneaky peek to say, I wonder how they've done this in Roll20, or I wonder how Fantasy Grounds looks with Symbaroum, or do you just say, I'm going to do my own thing?
Rinsed Forbidden Lands in Roll20 a bit to see how it looked there when I created the modules, just to see how the system was and if there was some neat things I could make from it. But in the end, I don't think I did.
I think you had a really good starting point as well, didn't you? Because I played a campaign of Forbidden Lands. Actually, it was in the Dark Sun setting, which was really good fun, all the way through on Roll20. And as soon as I saw the system on Foundry, I thought, this is better. I like this better.
Yeah.
I've never looked at the other systems.
No.
No, I've got a. I bought Fantasy Grounds some time ago and played with it for a little bit, and I didn't really like it, to be honest. I thought it was a bit dated.
I had high hopes when they went from Classic to Unity.
Yeah, me too.
And then I backed it and said, I'm going to get the Ultimate license now, yeah? And then basically all they did is they took the same user interface and put it into Unity. I was like, no!
Context menus within context menus is just forever going to. It's just not the way to go.
Yeah. I have to say that I definitely prefer Foundry there, but it's interesting to see how they've done the rule books and Symbaroum. Yeah, and the Copper Crown that is already on there. I found that very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I like about when you were showing me that the other day is the fact that, and we can't do this, and it's what Mooman's done, is that idea of having an index down one side and the page you're looking at, so you can do that. I mean, the way we're doing it at the moment is quite crude.
Yeah.
To be honest, throwing a journal entry up with a load of links in it, it'd be nice to do that.
There
Yeah.
is,
Ulysses are doing it. So why when you say you can't do it? Why is that?
It can be done.
Right. But you said it's a beast of a module or of programming.
The issue you've got is when you start anything where you're writing around what Foundry does, you run the risk of if Foundry ever changes or implements their own version of it, yours will suddenly stop working. So if you start building that into your own modules, you've got a problem. I mean, when Philip released journal anchor links, I thought, right, I want to use that in the Symbaroum module. And it works really well. If I can't see Foundry doing it for some time actually, but if Foundry ever do their own spin of that, Philip will stop supporting the module. All my old modules will stop working.
Yeah, but you don't really want to go back over them, do you?
That's why sometimes it's better to say, look, we've got to accept this is the way it works, rather than trying to write something. It might look very nice and make some people happy, but if they don't read a user manual, are they ever going to bother?
Fair enough.
It's the same thing with me styling the journals essentially. Doing that, I ran the risk of literally not supporting any journal module whatsoever, and that's a risk. That's why Xiaoge probably doesn't support Monk's journals, or Monk's enhanced journals, or whatever it's called, or Forian's quest log. It could be a ton of modules that now aren't supported by that system, and that's unfortunate. So I try to, stick to core Foundry as much as I can, and not use dependencies, not use any sort of modification that sort of runs the risk of not supporting third-party modules, because the expectation from a user's perspective is that most modules should work to some degree if they want to. Yeah.
Forian's quest log I love, especially for Forbidden Lands, with all the hooks you get. So yeah.
And I was really pleased when you collaborated and got the party sheet built into Forbidden Lands,
that was good as well.
That's really nice to use.
That was actually something I championed before I even took over the system. I asked Perfecto if he wanted to do it, but he wanted to keep it separate. But I knew when I took over, I wanted that thing in. And Maxstar was also kind to give us the character generator, which he hadn't released or anything. It was something he just had as a homebrew that he made by himself and used for himself.
And that is really good to see how you guys are working together on this. I find that very heartening. And I just hope that you keep doing that. So from my side, that's all my questions. But anything else from our audience, or anything else from you? From you too?
I think future Foundry development is going to be very, very interesting. I'm looking forward to the card modules. Right now, I'm not really working in Foundry. I've been focusing on the hiring process and stuff.
Fair enough.
There's been a lot of other changes, but I'm really looking forward to the cards appearing, so I can dive into implementing proper initiative and stuff in Forbidden Lands.
I've played with that a little bit on the community card system, and it looks snazzy. But it's actually right now was a pain to use. You're handing out card collecting cards.
I don't think the implementation is anything like it.
No, hopefully it's better.
I think Paul maybe has been on the
preview.
I don't know if you played with it.
I have. I like Torg Eternity, and Torg Eternity is a very heavy card game. So I tried to implement that for a Torg game using the card modules, and I agree with you, they're good, but they don't do what you need to do. I know Matt, who's developing Torg, is working on it right now. He hasn't He hasn't shown us anything, but I know he's all over it, because obviously it's an integral part to the way that the combat mechanic works in Torg. Excuse me, the action mechanic. So he's really looking forward to that, and I think that's going to be probably one of the first. I suspect that's going to be one of the first systems that we see the cards really used. You know, players with hands, you know, dealing cards, you know, a player playing a card out of a hand and things like that, which swapping cards between players, which is certainly you need to do with Torg. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how that shapes up.
Cool.
Moreover, I'm just hoping that he hasn't deleted any more code that he said he wasn't going to delete.
Okay, I'll leave that uncommented. Yeah, for me, as I said, it was a huge pleasure getting an insight into what you do and meeting you too, and especially meeting you, Philip. Paul, I've talked to a couple of times already. I had the pleasure a few times. Carry on what you're doing, because I'm relying on the systems running. And best of luck with your future endeavors as well, especially with the new job, but also with any other systems that you might be doing or modules you're doing. So keep us... I'm working on something. And nobody knows about this system, weirdly enough. About the system?
So it's going to be...
Okay.
Yeah. Like the RPG, I mean. Nobody seems to know about it, so it's going to be exciting to.
Is it still a secret then?
Launch it. Yeah, it's going to be kept a secret for now.
Does anybody want to tackle troubleshooters? Helmgast.
I want to play that. Yeah.
I want to play it as well. Definitely want to play it. But I got a package today from Games Quest, and there are two packages I'm expecting. One is Twilight. 2000 4th edition, and the other one is Helmgast, and I was the troubleshooters. I was really looking forward to troubleshooters more than Twilight, and of course it's Twilight, so I've got it here now, but I don't think I'm ever actually going to play it. It's a bit unfortunate. Anyway, thank you very much again for your time. I really appreciate it. Yeah, stay in touch. Maybe if the interest is there, we had a few people watching today, which was really nice, but if the interest is there, maybe we can do a follow-up when you have a new release and we can talk about it a bit or something like that.
Thank you to everyone that uses the system and supports us, because you know we get, you know, the good thing about the Discord is it's a good community. We get a lot of good feedback from people, which is really, really nice. We also get the ones that think they pay for these systems. And we often have the conversation, do we not, Philip, of actually the system's free.
The system is free. You get a lot of support.
Get for the system.
You get a lot of support for free there as well. So buy the compendium modules. Buy the content.
It was a risk. It was a risk that Free League took, essentially. We talked a lot with Free League about this, whether they wanted to use community systems or whether they wanted to make their own. And I strongly suggested that they would use community systems, so we did not have two versions, which we do of some systems on Foundry. It's not a good look. Though, of course, that comes with the downside of the system being community managed and does not have anything to do with the modules inherently.
Indeed.
It's the modules that need to adhere to the system, essentially. Yeah.
And fingers crossed, currently you're developing the system and the modules, right?
Yeah.
Makes it a bit easier.
It's under my oversight, so yeah.
Good stuff. Well, thank you again to everybody. Chat as well. Yeah, a couple of very well-known names in there. But it's been a pleasure. So, I'll bring this to a close and I'll speak to you all soon.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.